Do you have angry and intrusive thoughts that pop into your head all the time, and you seem to have no control over them? Well, we're going to talk about what that is. They say your subconscious brain is like 90% of your brain, and it's basically a giant supercomputer. You program it, and also the people in your environment that you're dealing with are programming it. And what you need to know about it is that it has no will or consciousness of its own. It's like a giant calculator. They say garbage in, garbage out. Or the subconscious is a good servant, but a bad master. Basically, what your subconscious is doing is it's being triggered by your environment, and then it's playing back your past traumas. So chances are you had a really bad childhood. And chances are that maybe your situation was similar to mine, where you were raised by an adult that went to work all day long, and they chose to dwell on anger and negative thoughts all day long about how bad their wife and children were, and how they were leeches and they're the cause of all their problems and their financial problems. And then they also couldn't control their stress that they had in them and anxiety about all their bills and all the money that they owe and having to go to work all the time. And their outlet was to come home and explode on the whole family and just scream and yell all day long, just with no end, right? So as a child, uh, you end up going to school and you have to deal with people, and you have all these bad examples of like how dangerous and sporadic and crazy people can act, and you have problems dealing with relationships like dating, and then you have problem dealing with just meeting people and interacting with them in general. Then as an adult, you're going to seek out people to reenact this trauma with. You're going to seek out people in relationships, marry somebody that's going to abuse you and they're going to explode all over you, or maybe you'll be the abuser and you'll be the one exploding all over everyone. And you're just going to reenact these traumas. And these traumas were handed down from your grandparents to your parents. They're handed to you. You'll hand them down to your children. And, there's really no end to it unless somebody breaks the cycle and stops doing this. These are generational traumas. So your subconscious brain records all these interactions like a giant tape recorder and plays them back to you. Um, Basically playing back all your traumas, and you view people as dangerous, unpredictable, could explode in rage at any second for no reason whatsoever. Um, just you have no trust of people whatsoever. So what happens is basically like every time you're around people, or you think about people, or you see people, or you see people in a movie or anything, that triggers your subconscious brain to start sending you signals and scenarios about um, how to defend yourself, things that have worked in the past, like screaming and yelling profanities, um, or violence, or violent thoughts. And if you think about it, doesn't that sound a lot like those intrusive thoughts? you know it's basically playing back, like scenarios to try to help yourself out of a dangerous situation. It's trying to defend you against somebody that it feels is a threat, which is any human being you feel is a threat, and it's trying to defend you from that. Those are where those thoughts are coming from. So how can you deal with intrusive thoughts, which is completely normal? Everybody has them. They're in everybody's heads. And, I don't know, I imagine they're different between one person to the next. One of them is acceptance. Um, just understand that everybody has them, and it's completely fine to have these kind of thoughts pop into your head. It doesn't mean anything. It's a big nothing, right? And you just have to accept that it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean also that you've sinned or that you're evil or you're going to hell or you've offended God by thinking these horrible thoughts. And people have any kind of thought that you could think of is going to pop into your head. So, but just don't think that, like, God's up there judging you every time you have a thought. You'd spend your whole life apologizing for every thought that you ever had, and how would you even keep up? It's just ridiculous. One thing is just accept that it's completely normal. Uh, Another thing that you could do is better programming, like for New Age spiritualists. And if you're not New Age spiritualists, it's also just something that you could do from a psychology standpoint to purge yourself of all of your hatred and your anger and all of your negativity and all of the grudges that you hold against, like people that have abused you in the past, or and forgive yourself for being abused, which sounds weird, but here's the thing, like you have to tell yourself that, what, like for instance, as a child, right, like as a 5-year-old, I wasn't able to be the psychiatrist for a grown man who was possibly bipolar and would come home acting completely nuts, and I didn't do anything wrong. Nobody did. He had mental problems, and he didn't know how to deal with those problems, and he didn't have the tools, and there was nobody to tell him, and he wasn't willing to even change regardless. And you have to say, what, like, it's okay. I wasn't responsible for that. That wasn't my job to be the psychiatrist for a grown man. That was his problem. I didn't do anything wrong, you know? And you also have to realize that, adults are, sometimes adults are just complete idiots, and they have no business being a parent to anybody. They don't have the brain power to be doing something like that. They don't have any control of their own emotions to be in a position where they're in charge of children. Sometimes you gotta just accept that they were just too stupid to be parents in the first place, and just, once you realize that how dumb they are, and that they had no control over themselves, and they didn't know where to get help, and wouldn't admit that they had a problem, and they're just stupid, then you can you don't have to ever like them again, but you can just push it out and say, you know what, I could forget about it, And as an adult, you can realize that, sometimes you come at people with anger inside of you, and you're angry, and then somebody you don't even know just blows up on you because they sense that anger. And sometimes it's partially your fault that you just went out into the world with an angry attitude, and somebody reflected it back onto you, and you kind of say, you know what, that was like both of our faults. It wasn't, they were angry, I was angry, we ran into each other. It wasn't, I need to just let it go. And just being willing to change, and not be somebody that sits around and dwells in angry thoughts all day, and wanting to make a change in yourself, and not be that type of person. And eventually, if you go through this whole high vibrational state thing, or maybe there's something similar to it in psychology, you can purge yourself of all this bad programming, and this hatred, and this anger, and this fear, and replace it with love for people, and understanding that some people are toxic, and you say, you don't want to change, you want to keep being like that, get out of my life. And other people, you can look through their flaws, push them aside, and see that they're just an imperfect person, but there's a good person in there that is worth dealing with anyways, and just understand that people are flawed, and that's okay. You're flawed, that's okay. You can make mistakes. It doesn't matter. It's all right to not be perfect, And once you start analyzing things in this kind of way, you can push all that pain out of you, and start your life over, and look at people with actual, caring about those people and wanting to hear about them and want to know about their lives and how they're dealing with their lives and their solutions, and if they have anything that they can teach you, and actually like considering like everyone that you work with and everyone that you know and everyone that you run into as a friend, and not oh, they're work people and they're no good, and these people are, that person's my boss and they're no good, and blah blah blah. You could push all that out of you. Just realize that every person is just a person, and you can connect to them, and then you start having better programming in your mind and less intrusive thoughts. So that's another strategy, which I think is important for anybody. Honestly, that's a very good thing to do for yourself. Another thing is just watch what you think and what you say, because everything that somebody says to you is programming. Somebody's yelling at you, they're programming your subconscious brain with anger. Every time you yell at someone, or you're yelling or you're saying angry things, or you're thinking them about, oh, this person's no good and everybody's no good and you live and then you die and blah blah blah, like, man, you're putting that programming in your brain, and you're programming your subconscious with horrible thoughts all day long. Like, that's not a good thing. Like, try programming it with good thoughts. You can lay in bed at night, and before you go to bed, like, which is what spiritualists call manifestation, but you could do it anyways. You don't have to be a spiritualist. Just think positive thoughts about life, and like people and things that you want to do, and everything's going to be fine. And just put programming in there that's positive. Now, another thing that you could do is you can directly talk to your subconscious and program it, because your subconscious is listening all the time. It's listening right now. Mine is listening right now. Everything that's being said is being recorded and entered into that supercomputer up there. You can directly talk to your subconscious in your mind and tell it that that's not how you want to live. You don't think these bad things about people, or the world or anything else. This doesn't reflect you anymore. This is not who you are anymore. You move past all these negative thoughts. People aren't bad. We don't need to defend ourselves against people like that and be freaked out. We're a grown adult and we can defend ourselves. We don't need to constantly be afraid of people. They're not out to get us. And start telling yourself that you don't want any more thoughts like that. These aren't helpful. And you can directly just program your brain. I did that at one point, and just like 95%, if I was going to put a percentage on it. Sometimes people argue with me when I do percent. It's not some scientific calculation. I'm just saying, like, most of those thoughts just disappeared like that, from just telling myself I'm not interested. Stop doing it. Just stop it. Because you're the one in charge of that supercomputer. It's your computer. You don't have to let boss you around. It's a bad servant. I mean, a good servant, but a bad master, as they say, right? Like, that's what it is, right? You're the one controlling it. Start controlling it. Okay, now here's another thing is to stop worrying about those intrusive thoughts and the fear that somehow, like, thinking something is you're going to somehow lose control of your body, and you're going to act out some intrusive thought because you thought it, right? Now, I was listening to the Scared to Death podcast the other day, and they started talking about if they're on the roof of a skyscraper, looking over the side, they have the fear that they're going to lose control of their body and just jump over the side, even though they know it won't really happen. But there's this fear, like, what if it did? Because it could be, you jump over the side, that's it. And it's not because they want to, or they feel bad and they want to jump off like you're thinking. It's just the fear that the intrusive thought might somehow control their body and make them do this, right? So, I've had those thoughts before about like being on a skyscraper. So I was like, wow, are people think that too? But it says, okay, so I Googled it. Some people, particularly those with severe case of acrophobia, fear of heights, can experience a fear that they might jump off a building when on a skyscraper due to intrusive thoughts or anxiety due to the extreme height and the visual perception of the drop off below. It's sometimes referred to as high place phenomenon. Okay, so another one that happened one time is I was dating this girl. We were sleeping in the same bed together. I was trying to go to sleep. All of a sudden, she wakes me up and she tells me that she's freaked out because she's having thoughts that she's going to murder me, right? Which honestly I thought was funny. Um, right? So she's having visions in her head, like intrusive thoughts that she might stab me to death with a knife, or that she'll put a pillow over my face and try to smother me to death in my sleep. Um, and basically, these are, it wasn't really that she was angry about me or something. It was just intrusive negative thoughts that were popping into her head that don't really reflect what she really thinks. Basically, I'm a human, so I'm a trigger for relationship problems. The subconscious is spraying back past traumas, at her. And the more you think about it, like, don't think of an elephant too late, right? You thought of an elephant. Well, try not to think about an elephant anymore. Well, the more you try not to think about it, the more you think about it, right? So she's in this loop where she can't stop thinking about these intrusive thoughts, and she was afraid that she would lose control over her body somehow and stab me to death or kill me or smash my head with an anvil or grab an axe and chop me up. I don't know, whatever, right? And so, anyways, my solution at the time, because I knew it was like just intrusive thoughts and that she's not really going to act on these, and I understood that these don't really reflect what she thinks of me. At least I hope not, right? But I told her, I just said, look, go back to bed. They're just thoughts in your head, and they mean nothing. And uh, there's nothing you could possibly do. You couldn't. You don't even have the power to kill me. I wouldn't let you. There's no way that you could do this, even if you wanted to. That you couldn't do it. And well, that's how I feel about things. So, anyways, she went back to sleep, and that was it, as far as I know. I didn't get chopped up, so. But anyways, that's just another case of like, how you can't really lose control of your body, right? You could think about raising your hand, but you actually have to raise your hand to raise your hand. Like this, these intrusive thoughts aren't going to take you over and fling you off a cliff or something like that. So, anyways, so basically, intrusive thoughts are just a reflection of the bad programming that's in your subconscious. So if you have anything that that you want to add, and maybe I could learn something, then put it in the comments. Or if you can relate to any of it, or if something like this happened to you, or you have those kind of thoughts or something, then put it in the comments. Like tell people about it. I don't know. And push the like button if you thought it was worth watching. Nobody ever pushes that button. So there, somebody do that. Thank you.